What if you had only 60 minutes to share your message, your truth, and your legacy with the world? That is the main question in the Final Chance podcast. I am your host, Stephanie Claus, and I'm a purpose activator. I have met some incredible people throughout my life, and I love for you to get to know them too and to be inspired by who they are and what they have to say. Time is ticking, so let's go. So welcome back to another episode of The Final Chance. And as I'm sitting here with my guest of the day, I feel really quiet. My excitement today is like very peaceful and quiet because it feels special to introduce you to this amazing being, and yet I also feel very tender. So who is this man that I will talk to today? Do I even have the words to describe him? I'm not sure. Many of you may know him as the founder of Heart IQ. Some of you may also know that he lives in New Eden. It is a real place, but if you don't know it, it's a retreat center in the north of the Netherlands. And it's a man who has made a significant impact in my life, who has taught me how to expand my heart, open up my emotional range, and express myself in more ways than I probably ever knew was possible. As before I met him, I was more of a shy, introvert, spiritual being who was in hiding mode. And that is a little bit of his background. At the same time, to me, he's a brother. I believe we know each other from before this lifetime or future lifetimes. We come from a place beyond this earth where we have met before. I feel he's always in my heart, whether we text each other for a year or not. And I'm super happy now, though, to introduce you all to him. Welcome to you, Christian Pankhurst.
Oh, wow. So sweet and special to hear you share a little bit of the recap of our history. That's beautiful.
Just like anyone else who's here on the podcast, you actually have no idea what this is about. So basically, this is your final chance. The setup of this podcast is what if this would be the last conversation you would ever have, and you only have 60 minutes to share your essence, leave a message to humanity, your loved ones, anything like that. And you don't have to start thinking about that yet. I'll ask you questions and it will all unfold in perfect timing. But time has started. Clock is ticking. Let's go. So to drop into this idea, I love you to drop in with me here, and you can close your eyes for a moment. And then I invite you to imagine that your final hour has come. That right now you get that real deep intuitive knowing or a message from your higher self that tells you the end is near. In 1 hour, you, as Christian, as the human form that you are, will end. You will die. And so during these 60 minutes, you get a chance to review your life's journey. And of course, as we are having this conversation and this is becoming a podcast, you do have a chance to leave a message, a final chance to leave a message to the world. And just as a starter, I'm always curious to know, how does that feel when you imagine that this would be your final hour? What does it evoke in you?
Well, right now there's a mixture. One, relief. There is a part that is feeling the weight of something in my life where knowing that there's 1 hour left, there is a feeling of relief. Then there's also a feeling of, so much to do, so much yet to have accomplished, and the push, the need to express and move more out into the world and not having time, of course. Then there was instantly the memory, and you wouldn't know this, which is fascinating. I literally just came out of a retreat where it was a couples retreat. And the very final practice I invited them to do was exactly this.
Oh my God.
And so I had them close their eyes and say, I'm so sorry to announce that you are about to say goodbye to your loved ones and you will never see them again. This is it. You're at the airport. They're about to get on a plane. It was slightly different context, but the frequency was the same.
A bit more dramatic.
It's a bit more dramatic, yeah. I like to just... and what do you have to say as your final goodbyes? What are you grateful for? What are you incomplete around? And I was thinking, God, this would be beautiful to do as a way to bring more of what I want to share with the world out. And then you're asking this question just a few days later, and I'm like, well, that's not... It's weird and it's not weird if you know our kind of history and connection. So,
Nice. Beautiful.
Yeah, that's what comes up right now in the
Yeah.
presence of your question.
Well, I'm so happy that I get to be the first one, or maybe the only one, if it really is going to be the final hour for you, to have this conversation with you and to see what comes up. So first of all, before we go into what are your final words, Christian Pankhurst, final ones before that last breath comes out, I want you to, like, for a moment again, if you want to close your eyes, feel free to do so. But I want to, like, zoom out with you. I always like to compare it with taking on the eagle's eye. Or another way is of imagining that right now we are really going beyond the veils and we really get to tune in more to our soul and our higher self. And as you're almost already leaving this earth plane, we get to rise up and sit on a cloud together. And from that perspective, we get to really zoom out and have that bigger picture of Christian Pankhurst's lifetime. To get that overview and the bigger picture of it. So that you're really able to review your life from perspective of your higher self and soul. And if you look at your lifetime from that perspective, I'm curious about the treasures that you picked up, that you gathered on your life's journey. Things that maybe also made your journey really unique and specific to you. And I'm sure also you're an incredible being that has done so many things. So there may be a lot of things that you're like, oh, it's too much, but just see whatever comes up in this moment that you're like, yeah, whew, in this lifetime, these are some of the treasures that I gathered and that you want to share with us.
And just to clarify, treasures could be in any form, including experiences or specific people that I've met along the path.
Exactly. It's literally anything that comes up for you.
Yeah, I think for me the first thing that emerges is around some of the people that I've been in contact with. When I can't remember exactly the age, but it must have been around 19 years old, such weird shit began to happen in my life that I created a little journal called My Weird Events Diary.
Do you still have that somewhere, by the way?
Yeah, it's hidden in the attic, probably at home. But it's a journal of magic. It's a journal of things that occurred that can't be in any way cognitively understood or logically named as why that could possibly have happened. And I go back to it whenever I get a bit cynical about the world and about life, because my life in those first few years around discovering awakening, a new reality, especially working with Neil Donald Walsh and all that kind of area of my life was very, very magical. And so in that time, I'm brought back, actually, when you ask that question, moments of just connecting to something so much bigger. And it was the time when I came into the realization of really what I want to do in the world and the impact I want to make, and being connected to frequencies and to beings that felt beyond this place, but still very much a part of me. And actually encountering teachers and mentors and very, very special people in my life that formed who I became. So there's something about that period of my life that feels precious and feels informative to everything else I've ever done since.
Beautiful. I'm just curious, but now that it's your final hour anyway, and it doesn't matter anymore what people are going to think because you'll be gone anyway, is there any magical, crazy, multidimensional, extraordinary moment that you're like, whoa, this was so not of this world, that you do want to share?
Yeah, this is the thing. I'm like, how do I share that in short periods of time that doesn't take up all the 60 minutes? Because there is one, and I'm sure you're even aware of it because you are familiar with my personal story. But the one that comes to mind that always lands dear in my heart, that feels transformational still to this day as I feel into it, is the moment when I woke up in the middle of the night and I felt a frequency coming into my whole body, and it resonated and downloaded and informed everything that I did from then on. And waking up in the middle of the night around 3 or 4 p.m, there was a load of context around it, dreams and weird stuff that was going on, but I don't really feel the need to go into all of the micro detail. However, this frequency that I connected to wasn't just a frequency of light or beauty, it had information. I was literally being upgraded in the middle of the night by something that felt way beyond this time and space. It felt past, future, but I don't know, it was weird. And it felt connected to something extraterrestrial. I only say that because moments before in my dream space, I met the being that was basically saying, when you wake up, this is going to happen. So I was like connected to two. So either my subconscious was just having a wild imagination, but what happened actually when I did wake up, which wasn't a dream, felt and was very, very real, to such a degree that another friend of mine who was sleeping next to me woke up by all the crazy shaking that was going on in my body as this energy entered me. And he touched my hand as I was moving with this energy, and arthritis that he was crippled with for years before, by morning was completely gone. Now, I don't know how you explain that. I was his chiropractor at the time. I had x-rays of his hand before and after. That should be physically and scientifically impossible that you can reverse degenerative arthritis at all, not alone in a night. But he said that as this energy came into my body, when he touched me, he felt it enter his entire hand, and it froze him for hours, because I woke up and he was still in the same position, completely white. And I thought, what the hell's going on with you? And he goes, I don't know what happened, but as I touched you, this energy came into my hand. And now look, I can move it and do stuff with it that I've never done. You know, he was in his 50s, 60s, and he said he hasn't had function in that for decades. Now I didn't hold that as an, Christian.
Oh, yeah.
Wow, the healer.
I'm the healer. Touch my hand and you're healed. But
he thought that. So he suddenly said, you know, I've got an issue with my kidney. Could you touch that too? And I said, I think you've missed the point. I didn't control it. I just woke up. This thing happened. It was a miracle of timing and the perfect confluence of all these different things factoring in. And what was happening was I was being initiated into my purpose. I was being brought into, what I'm here for. I was being reunited with, like, okay, this is now the frequency that I am blending with to bring to the world, so that something can move through me for something bigger than me. Yeah, I hold that as the anchor point it's like a before and after moment in my entire life. Because after that, the next morning, I was in the shower. I knew exactly what my purpose was, what I was going to do, and how I was going to bring it. And all the information around how to facilitate group knowledge around group dynamics in the amplified field, and the language of how to bring people into resonance and resolve conflict and deal with the translation of all the unspoken stuff that emerges when people try to heal and come into unity consciousness. It was all available. Nobody had to teach me. So I said, well, how do you explain that? It came from another source. My nervous system just received it. Now, through experience and through the decades of working, I got better and refined, because all that knowledge had a place to be utilized. And I could get feedback from all the stuff that I was doing. But that has to be right up there as one of the most epic moments of my life.
Absolutely. And I'm so happy that you're sharing it, because it is, let's say, in the realm of the impossible. And yet again, it is real. It happened. It has been experienced, and therefore possible. So loved that you shared this one.
Yeah. And this, by the way, was before Hard IQ. It was before any of that. All of that
was birthed from this.
Yes. It was basically like, how do I want to produce that physically into the world? But really, at the core of when you ask, like, who am I and who have I been in my life, that's been a defining moment that's irrelevant of brand, of a creation of an organization or a body of work. I mean, to me, yes, wonderful. That's part of legacy. I hope people take it and use it, and it helps improve people's lives into the future when I'm gone. And yet, that's what I remember and hold dear.
I want to zoom into that a little bit more, as in, you just mentioned it yourself too, like there's the forms and the expression of it and what people may know as hard IQ or the work you do and all of that. But I'm curious how you would describe the core or the essence or the frequency of what you are and what you're bringing through. So what is the essence of the ripple that you've been creating?
A bridge. Somehow, whatever is inside of me, it sees goodness and value in extremes and in contradictory points of view. So it's trying to integrate masculine and feminine, dark and light, good and evil, all the things that what people might have a position against. I can equally go to the other side and bridge, so that any form of division can find unity through mutual understanding and actually feeling each other's pain. what I understood very quickly was that the brain and the mind is what's divisive in people's experience. So what became very clear is this frequency, and what my essence is, it's heart. And in the frequency of the heart, where people can meet in their emotion, in their energy, in their heartbreak, actually, there is no division, and pain can actually unify us. Not to say that we need to be in our pain. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying that, for example, when I gathered people with this simple invitation to share their stories of loss, grief can be a bond. But if you try to get everyone to figure out why that person was lost, suddenly they all had an idea around why they think that person was no longer in their life, and it became heady. And now people had to either agree or disagree. But at the level of the heart, all that people needed to do was to feel each other. And so therefore, to be in contact, to feel one another, was creating resonance. But if they tried to think about stuff, they created dissonance. So I felt very intuitively, I want people just to feel more. And to feel more alive, to feel more of their truth, to feel more of their essence, to feel more of their heartbreak, and not to hide and diminish and push it all away. I just wanted people to feel. And that was because that was perfect for me, because my history as a human, as a child with developmental trauma and neglect, was somebody who basically built a very big wall that made it very hard for me to feel. So the alignment of my soul's mission with my human upbringing of the stuff that I had going on as a child is like a perfect match. So, that's why when you ask me about what is the essence, it's a fusion of the parts of me, actually. But that's what I mean about the bridge. It's like, I don't want to leave any part of me behind. I have really young parts that crave attention, that have attachment trauma, that need safe, secure bonds in order for me to open my heart. And I want to honor that. Because when I don't, I run into addictive strategies, and I go into codependent ways of being that just simply don't serve me, my life, and the frequency that I yearn to bring doesn't get brought. And yet, if I only stay in that and I ignore the fact that there's a higher calling from the universe, there's a higher calling from source, there's a higher calling from the future, actually. Because if you look at Hard IQ's tagline, it says, experience the future today. And the reason why I said that, it's a subtle reveal of actually my deeper truth, which is I feel like I'm a bit of a time traveler. It's like I've tapped into a frequency of the future and bringing it to the now so that people can experience what is possible in the future now. So I would say intrinsic to my essence is the integrated bridge of different parts, bringing everything in inclusivity and unity, along with this future-bound frequency. What it feels like is I receive like transmissions from the future. It's like somebody has been able to create a little time machine and has been able to build a radio back in time, and I'm receiving messages from a future version of either myself or a frequency or a body of consciousness, a collective. I don't yet know. All it is that I get regular high frequency packets that come in, and I literally hear them. I can't hear them as words. It's very, very high frequency. And then in my dream space, it all unpacks. And then I get new information. And often it occurs, say, before I run a retreat, information about certain people come in through these transmissions, like zip files. The zip files get decompressed. I'm then able to bring certain information and knowledge. And it's a form of precognition, which I've had since I was a child too. I've dreamed stuff when I was like 8 that's still happening now. How do you describe that? I remember the dreams. I'm like, that's amazing.
Yes, totally.
Weird. Is this making sense? And is this aligned to your question, or is it? Am I on? Am I off?
Yeah. I would bring you back on track of not Christian Pankhurst.
Nice.
And I want to roll with what you just mentioned is the future glimpse. Because again, if this would be your final chance, curious to hear whether it's in word or pictures or just anything you want to say about that. If you can right now drop the bomb, like drop the future glimpse or what you've been seeing, sensing, what you know. But if you would like summarize it, is there one thing that you want to share about the future you know that you can bring through right now?
Well, this isn't going to come as a surprise. We are so not alone in this universe. And there is a consciousness that is waiting to be unified before that which is considered to be like our solar cosmic neighbors will reveal themselves and will become more part of a larger family. So there is a mission on this world where light workers from all different ways of thinking being, whether it's therapists, cancer practitioners, therapists, healers, whatever you call it, we're all trying to bring healing to a world that's deeply divided and deeply disconnected and fragmented. And I don't want to make that wrong. We have made enormous progress over the millennia in a very short period of time. And current trajectories is that we're at a precarious tipping point where we could be in a grand unification, like a golden age, if you like. And in that, there is a resulting reveal, if you like. Because I know this sounds a bit weird. It's not weird to you. But I've been a big fan of Star Trek. And when I watch Star Trek, actually, I'm amazed at how intuitively it aligns with stuff that I've felt actually true for over a long period of time. And I'm not talking about the weird pointy-eared aliens and the weird battles they have. Like, for example, have you ever heard of the Prime Directive?
I mean, I feel like we've had this conversation before, but I'm going to say no for now.
Okay. So the Prime Directive is it's like the core value of the Federation in the Star Trek universe. And the Prime Directive pretty much goes like this. We, as a race that has technology and consciousness and a way of life that far exceeds the type of other beings that we encounter, if we are much further ahead, we do not interfere with their development. They must be left to find their own way. We don't take sides. We don't give one group weapons. So we don't try to upgrade their culture with technology. The Prime Directive states we're not going to interfere. And there's a certain bar at which there's a certain thing that they're waiting for to see that world can be unified and reach a certain level of proficiency. And it's at that point do they then make first contact. But they won't until that's happened. And so this planet, for example, is so far from actually being in a space where first contact would even be... people would come here and go, no thanks, let's get the hell out of here. Neil Donald Walsh actually shared a funny thing that ETs, or highly evolved beings, he calls them Hebs, come with their kids as a show and tell, basically, as a way to reveal to their children, like, do you see what doesn't work? You see what are they doing? Now let's get the hell out of here and get back to our place. So there's one part of what I've felt is, or seen, is a unification over time that results in first contact. And that the work that we're all doing, not just Hard IQ, me personally, I mean, as a collective endeavor, whether we know that or not, there's that happening. However, there are other parts that are highly, what do you call it? There are these challenges or forks in the road that are very, very also possible. We may not remain biological. So there is a singularity that may be reached in our lifetime beyond which no one really knows what may happen. And a singularity is the moment when intelligence and consciousness, often in the form of an artificial form of intelligence, so for example, like AI, computer-generated intelligence, kind of exceeds or crosses over into what they call general intelligence that can supersede humanity. And in that moment, it's a runaway effect. So therefore, we can never catch up. And it will be a moment of unknown. And we don't know the intention of that type of general intelligence on us as humans. And there might need to be an invitation to either join, or there is some people have a lot of dark thoughts around this, like really like, we're going to hit the shit's going to hit the fan if we allow ourselves to build this type of tech. The tech could destroy everything we've worked so hard. It could destroy nature, it could destroy, and we're all going to become some kind of blended AI cyborg or something. Now, I don't really feel that. There's a lot of fear around that. I'm not really into fear mongering. So I think if you were to ask me where my...
Yes, I am. I'm asking you right now.
where my sense is, I'm not into the doom and gloom scenarios. However, when I say that, I can't not speak to the fact that the transition between what's going on to where we're going, there's going to be, like, if you think COVID is bad, I believe that we're not even touching the beginnings of some of the decay, collapse, and recalibration and potential physical, energetic, emotional storms that are approaching. But I don't necessarily think that that is a die-off to completely eliminate humanity and we're now going to go into some kind of dystopian future. I'm actually very much standing for and have seen a very much a utopian future. But the transition between where we are and there, it's going to be treacherous and it's going to feel very intense and for some deeply, deeply disturbing and painful. The way the planet is responding to our actions, the way we have destroyed the microbiome, the virome, and all the different interconnected forces biologically as a collective nervous system, the way we are treating agricultural land through Roundup and different types of fertilizers, and how that's already since the 70s destroyed so much of our capacity to make food, the runaway temperatures of the environment that even if we stop today is still going to be massively problematic. I'm just talking about real physical, scientifically backed problems that we are facing with, which make the pandemic seem mild in comparison. And we're just at the beginning of that wave of a chapter of deep decay. But the decay is good because there are certain things that are happening and there's certain systems in place and certain ways of consciousness that simply shouldn't be here. It's not shouldn't, it's had its time.
Yes, exactly.
We're done. And it's like, it's time for something new. And that new frequency, I don't think is meant to blend with the old. So like a lot of my essence and a lot of my day-to-day work almost feels like it's fun, but I don't feel the impact is meant for now. I'm in waiting. I feel like I'm here to practice and get ready for what is coming and after that. It's bridging to a future that doesn't yet happen and then we need to rebuild. And I feel a part of that. So yeah, we're just starting to feel where the shit hits the fan, but I don't sense we're going to go back to like normal where everything has been the way it is. And we're just going to continue to live in this capitalistically focused system where there's a lot of different countries and lots of different wars happening in distant parts of the world. And we can just live our lives ignorantly, forgetting that half of the planet is starving without water. Things like that just simply aren't going to continue.
Yes. Amen.
And it's going to be super in our face. And a lot of people are going to biologically leave their bodies. In other words, die in that form as part of that transition. And if people are too attached to that form, it will create massive loss. And yet there is something else happening. And we have an opportunity to be part of something quite miraculous. It just won't take the form of how many people might think. It's not just going to be like us as human beings in our human bodies are going to naturally just now move into the next 100 years and gracefully move into a golden age where all those problems are behind of us. That's not how I see it. But what do I know? I mean, I don't.
It's fine that you get the chance to share whatever it is you feel called to share. So I do want to go back, and it's a little bit contradictory to what you're saying. That is, if you do stay alive, you feel like you're only in preparation mode, let's say, and only at one point the light really switches on and you can fully be activate, do whatever you are here to do.
Sleeper cell.
Sleeper cell, yeah, that's what you told me last time too. But if your final hour has come in probably only 30 minutes now or less, then I want you to imagine that that does mean that your mission is complete. And again, there might be this energy within you that's like, there was still so much to do and I was only a sleeper cell. But I want you to take on the viewpoint right now that if I die in less than an hour, it means that my life's mission is and was complete and completed. And then from that angle, I want you to, again, look at your life and see what is it then that you came here to be, do, experience, receive, download, upload, all of that.
Yeah. Well, I feel like given the context that you've just shared, I would say my mission, my purpose, my reason for being here was to practice and teach and experience unconditional love. Like to experience every facet, every corner, like what you're speaking to doesn't feel too foreign for me. Meaning I have experienced being in retreat and being in the work that I do, working with people, and then feeling these feelings of like, if it were to be over now, it would be okay. I would feel Like I have done what I'm meant to do. I've experienced what I've come here to experience. Because in the 20 odd years that I've spent in circle celebrating humanity in every multidimensional facet and every shadow, every light range, every emotional, energetic, expanded place that you can imagine, I have seen a lot. There's few places that people can go that I've not been with them and I've not seen them and witnessed them and felt in my own system. It's like I feel like it's been a holy privilege to have been witness to the dynamic, vast range that is human. The human spirit and the courage and the willingness and the heart of, it touches a place that it just goes, I could never have dreamed a better life. I could never have dreamed an opportunity sweeter, more precious. If I think about what I could have done with my world and my life, becoming a sound engineer, a DJ back in the day, and then I look at my life today and what I've experienced and what I've touched and what I've felt and what I've seen and the relationships I've had and the precious beings that have crossed my path. And I just go, I feel blessed beyond any imagination. That means if it were to end now in 25 minutes, I feel complete. Because there's nothing that can replace that embodied imprint of thousands and thousands of hearts daring to open wide. That is in my system. I carry them with me. So there's something about learning to love fully, deeply, multidimensionally that has been at the source of all my work and has been the source of all my fulfillment and is the reason why I get up and do what I do. And I actually do believe on a very practical level that there is enough of me stored in the digital world to create legacy, meaning I've recorded everything in the last 12 years. There is a legacy.
Live on digitally.
There's a legacy where I literally am immortalized in the digital world. My consciousness is now no longer here. There is a consciousness of the work and of my frequency, my, not meaning Christian, this frequency that came through that's now part of this body of work. It now has its own field of consciousness that anyone that wants to tap it could, whether I'm here or not. But my biological life isn't required for that field of consciousness to be tapped. So there is a body of consciousness, a field that exists, and there's enough people that's been imprinted and has received the transmission where it is complete. I don't have a beautifully structured organization that would easily manifest that out into the world as a business, because things are very simple and lots of things have changed since actually you were part of the whole organization. So it's simplified and minimized in a great deal. And yet all that energy, resource and consciousness and love and imprint, it's still there.
Exactly. So I just wanted to actually ask about legacy, also because I feel that word has its own signature. So you already mentioned, well, my legacy can still live on. So I want you to imagine that in 50, 100 years, your legacy does still live on. Like what will be your best case scenario? What is the legacy that you truly want people to have, I would say, embodied?
Yeah. I would say a new imprint of family, where every corner of the world had village returned to them, where individuals prioritize self-intimacy, couples learn to really love one another, but knowing that their love can only be sourced through their own self-connection and their ability to have good connection with their brothers and their sisters, and their tribe is returned as a normal way of doing our inner work together with others. So being in connection with tribe, feeling village, having children, being raised by a larger extended village than just the nuclear family. So if you were to say, what would be the most ideal outcome of, say, my work into the world as a legacy, it would be in 100 years' time that there would be a new normal around how people relate and how people are in connection with community and tribe as a way of raising children and bringing healthy children into the world who will eventually become the adults and leaders of tomorrow that prioritize unity over division and love over fear, and thus are part of the natural releasing of all systems that are rooted on control, fear, and a patriarchal dominating frequency, that it's more aligned and attuned to nature, it's more aligned and attuned to the best of the future and the past fused into one. But that's what I would want to see. I'd love to see a world where families are safe spaces supported by tribe, where children can be raised, and that the kind of traumas and horrors of yesteryear are no longer present, and are just a memory that we could study to look at. Wow, this is what once was, but we're so grateful that it isn't anymore.
To any parents that are listening, and anyone who's even not a parent but can move into a collective way of being instead of individual and all by themselves, can you speak to why is it important for our children and future children that they grow up in tribe instead of just in a nuclear family?
We've always lived in tribe. It's only the last couple of thousand years that has not been the case. In other words, our nervous system is neurologically wired for a collective need that runs so deep it doesn't even have a name in our culture. But when we are connected with others, it enriches and nourishes us in a way that we can't be met by ourselves or with a one-to-one intimate relationship. So the reason why it's important is because it touches and heals and deepens us, and it allows us to feel exquisite levels of joy and happiness that we just can't get on our own or in a nuclear-based system. So we are happier when we are connected to a larger village. And the reason why a lot of people don't feel happier right now in those types of constellations is because people don't know how, because they've forgotten how to get along in groups. Because we all experience at some form group trauma. So we've avoided groups and we've disconnected from others in such a way that we find it easy to be by ourselves, because we've got a pandemic of hyper-independence going on, where everyone thinks I'm good on my own. And yet, when people truly surrender into tribe, they realize there is resource, collaboration, connection, safety actually in numbers, where they can feel like, you know what, I don't have to do it alone. That a group has my back. That family is no longer held as this kind of like, oh God, that was a horrible experience as I was a child, not being understood and felt and seen, but is instead replaced with, I could never exist outside of having that in my life. It becomes almost an essential resource and a need that is no longer a nice to have. It's one of those primary needs, like water, air, oxygen, and all the rest of it. It's like, this is key. So I believe that tribe is needed for doing our deeper healing work. There are certain places that we cannot touch and access around releasing or touching and feeling trauma on our own or through a one-to-one intervention with a practitioner, coach, therapist. So that requires others to support us in. And nearly all of our wounding was tribal, actually, or group-based. If you think of it, we were brought up in a family. So there's at least one other, two others, maybe siblings as well, or an extended family. And that disconnection that we often felt needs to be healed in a group to heal it. So from a healing perspective, it's important. From a basic joy perspective, it's important. And it's part of our DNA. And evolution does not take place over a few hundred or even a few thousand years. So things that were relevant 100,000 years ago, you bet you can believe that they're still relevant in our system today. So if you want to see how we're meant to live, we should only look to our past, but not our recent past. See, 10, 12,000 years ago is when agriculture came in. And actually, that did great to build civilization, but was terrible when it comes to humanity being in connection. Because since then, we have warred and destroyed nature and lived unsustainably ever since. Before then, we were more in the hunter-gatherer type of living, and that was like that for hundreds of thousands of years. So it's only very recently that we have lived in a way that is very unsustainable, where we're more disconnected from tribe. But the majority of our nervous system was built in more localized small groups of around 20 to 100 max in small village. And that's been destroyed through cities, it's been destroyed through social media and digital worlds. And therefore, we have never lived with more people and never felt more alone. And, you know, I'm fortunate beyond measure to live in, like you said at the beginning, in this beautiful place called New Eden, where we actually have people living in community, where we can actually touch one another. We can actually hold and regulate our nervous systems. Because as children, if we don't have parents who know how to regulate and calm their own nervous system, we as children don't learn that skill, and we can't self-regulate at a young age. And therefore, this is what can create things like anxiety, panic attacks, a lot of stress in older times and later on in life. But in community and in tribe, you can actually have others co-regulate with you. You can actually have people to like cuddle with, and it sounds strange to like imagine this with people who don't get it. They might hold this suspicion.
What touch and cuddle and what? This is like, again, a weird thing.
Exactly. Like the simple practice of just going belly to belly with somebody and just breathing together. But doing that with like 15, 20 people all snuggled up into one single organism. And that what they're seeing now scientifically is that every time we breathe, we're breathing out genetic material and somebody else is breathing in that genetic material. So we're continuously being genetically modified by each other, by our proximity, by our touch, through our skin, through our air. And therefore, our nervous systems are syncing up. Our whole organisms or organism is coming into connection into one single organism. It's like a hive nervous system, a hive mind, and we can operate as a single presence. And there's something so freaking ecstatic and liberating and nourishing. That's the key. It's like most of us are so malnourished. We don't even know how malnourished we are, because the most common type of trauma isn't the violation that people had done to them that shouldn't have happened. It's the neglect. Exactly. And the thing about neglect is nobody knows it didn't happen because they don't know that it was missing. Because how would they know if they never had it? And therefore people are walking around this world with so much neglect trauma that if there was one thing that I could bring to the world as legacy, it would be that people could understand that independence is often the cover for that. And that they do need one another to be nourished, to be resourced like a sponge filling up with water, and to look at these parts. And that tribe can be a beautiful place for that to take place.
Just final question about that piece, because to anyone who's listening who is like, group is a scary thing, I don't feel safe, what are you talking about? And yet at the same time there is a desire, or what you are speaking to does resonate, or people become curious about it. What is a simple or a first step that people can take, in your opinion, when it comes to opening up from independence to the maybe scary group collective?
Well, there's several things. One is, are they alone or are they in relationship? Because if they are, say, for example, in a relationship, opportunities can open up very quickly right now in how they relate and connect, and just spending time connecting in different ways, where it's maybe less about sitting in front of the TV watching your favorite Netflix show, or just having sex in a certain form of kind of like tension release form, and then sleeping and then waking up and going about your day. I'm not saying that most couples do that, although there's nothing wrong with it, but there can be habitual patterns that end up just happening. And then we kind of lose sight with other ways, other pathways, other opportunities to bring something different. So I would say for couples, there's an opportunity to come into connection, which is different to the normal modus operandi that most people might have. If somebody is actually alone, I actually believe that the miracle of online technology, if used well, like even with this, like with Zoom and with this, the way that we can connect through digital means. I mean, over the pandemic, I got a bit zoomed out, to be honest. Like, I was like, oh God, not more online stuff. And yet, let's not forget the miracle that it's even possible to look at your face and actually have an interaction and to connect and to feel you to a degree. You could be anywhere on the other side of the planet. I mean, our ancestors would consider that pure wizardry and magic. And the fact that we have that, and then we just get a bit bored. Oh, I don't do online. I'm like, are you denying the miracle of connecting with family and friends from all over the world because you're a little bit zoomed out? Cool, I get it. Go for a walk and connect with nature, but then come back and embrace the technology that is being gifted to us by life right now. So I love tech, as most people who know me will know. Like, meaning I don't, I'm not one of those naturalists that says deny all technology. I love the balance of bringing in high tech to make our lives super rich. So the reason I'm saying all of this is, and I don't know whether you're asking for a step that is more ambiguous, that is not related to hard IQ, or whether I'm allowed to plug something here. I don't know. I mean, I'm not quite sure.
This is your final chance. Like, what chance are you taking? There's no restrictions here.
Yes. I don't know. I'm not, if it's my final 5 minutes, I wouldn't care about that. You know, it just wouldn't matter. It would be more to do with just take more time to breathe deep, look into each other's eyes, talk less, and invite, touch, and hold one another. And hold one another not so tightly that it hurts, but to just be together simply. And take time to rest. Take time to rest. So it's these more simple practices of connecting to self, connecting with others, staying in connection, even if technology is a bit of a defense mechanism or a fatigued space. Gather with friends, make it important to tell them how much you love them and stuff like that. It's all very simple stuff, isn't it, really?
But sometimes that's the first step anyway. The most simple step is also the accessible one. So that's perfect.
Including doing what you're doing right now, imagining that it was your last few minutes. And what if that person that you're speaking to, it was the last time, that you may not know when the next time will be when your paths cross, if ever. What do you need to say to them? What do you need to share with them? What's still between you? Don't leave conflicts held in the space. Choose, sounds like a Christmas cracker now. Choose love, not fear. But something Neil Donald Walsh often asks on that question that's very important is, what would love do now? And I don't think we often ask that question enough. But yes, I mean, if I didn't have these last 60 minutes or last 2 minutes left, I would say to people, if you want a new paradigm for relating and for coming into connection in tribe and with self and with other, then drop on either online or come live to New Eden for a Hard IQ experience. That's where we do it.
You live on.
In case I live on, in case I exist beyond this podcast, do something like that. It's a couple of days. It will fucking change your life forever.
Absolutely.
And you can do it online. You don't even have to come anywhere. You can just do it with your partner or a group of friends from your living room, and you'll learn skills to relate and do it differently. So I think that's awesome. That's probably the best resource that I can suggest.
Definitely recommended. Well, given that your time is now ticking away, John, I do want you to stay with me here for your final minutes.
It's leaving
We come to the point, indeed, where I'm asking you anything left that feels unspoken and said, any final words you have, whether it's to humanity at large, whether it's to loved ones.
I don't know, it's just a one big thank you. As you say those words, all I feel is, as I approach the end, it's just thank you. Actually, it's similar to that prayer, isn't it? I can't remember, there was a Hawaiian prayer. It says, I'm so sorry, please forgive me.
Ho'oponopono, right?
I love you and I thank you. It's like that. That's what it feels like would be my resting final words in my breath, is like wanting to say sorry to those that I've hurt, wanting to ask forgiveness for all the unconscious errors that I've made along the way, and sharing my love and being grateful for all the love that I've received. And there would be personal people that I would want to reach out to now in these final moments and just let them know it's going to be okay.
Beautiful.
No matter what, it's going to be okay. We're going to get through this. Yeah.
There's one more specific one to this, though. If there's one final message you could send out into the world to the children, and it would be something that if you speak this, it would be something that every child on earth would know, would realize, embody for the rest of their life, something that they could not ever forget. What is one thing you want every child on earth to know?
That they are loved and all of them is welcome. That there's no aspect of themselves that is intrinsically bad, shameful, or wrong. And that they are free to be, do, and live the life that they yearn for. And that adults don't always know better, but are there to support and guide the journey. And to stay true to themselves, no matter what.
Nice. So it is.
And so it is.
Beautiful. So now, exactly. Also, I don't know what happened, but I don't see your video anymore, and you just like you literally blacked out. Oh my God! Are you
really?
Still there?
I am.
But...
Let me just.
Okay.
Is that better?
Yeah. Okay, you're back. I don't know what.
When did that happen? I did my.
It wasn't your final words. I was like.
So my video died.
Yeah, it literally died.
That's what I mean. This needs to go into the Weird Events diary. Because,
exactly.
Because at the end of my 60 minutes, digitally, I died for a moment there.
Exactly. You were gone. How perfect. So, one more moment. I want you to, again, close your eyes with me. And I want you to imagine that 60 minutes have passed. The time has come. It's like you almost made it to heaven's door. Said everything you wanted to say. And as you look back at your life, you feel that something is calling you. Something is pulling you back. A heartstring is pulled and you just feel a deeper call again within that, of course, tells you that your time has not yet come. And so you have a chance of going back from heaven's door, back to earth, back fully into your body as Christian Pankhurst. And now you have one final chance. One more chance to live the life you're here for. I'm curious, even though I know throughout this conversation it became clear that there is this sense of completion and peace, and you've given it your all already. But if you have another chance of enjoying life or bringing more forward, like what is it that you desire, whether it's to embody experience for yourself or to create anything you look forward to?
It was interesting. I wasn't called, when you shared, I wasn't called back from Earth, but I was called from a different place. But if I were to come back, it would be to journey with a soul that's coming in as a father, like to actually be a dad, and to experience what that's like, because I have not actually tasted that frequency. And if I were to die not having the experience of what it's like to be a dad, I've been in contact and served and helped and been around kids all my life, and yet that's different to actually being a father of my own flesh and blood. There's something there that feels like, so it's like a soul waiting to come in. That's what I mean. Like, it wasn't coming from the earth. It was coming from like, hey, don't leave yet, because we haven't had a chance to do our dance. And I'm simultaneously a little bit scared of that too. But I also feel there's a right time to it. And yet, if I were to know that 60 minutes was truly on the clock right now, and I'd be like, oh, wow. I'm sorry I didn't get to experience that frequency of love that probably would trump them all.
Exactly. But again, assuming that you have a final chance, so this is the first thing that pops up, this dance with the soul that still wants to come into its little tiny human body. I mean, I cannot even imagine what that's human, if it comes out in human form, would be like if it's your son, but it's gonna be something. So
it's going to be a thing. It's going to be a thing.
It's going to be a thing. Human, I don't know, human, alien, whatever. A mixture, for sure. Multidimensional as fuck. Anything else you feel you want to do with your lifetime?
Again, these are more personal longings. It's like, I want to make more impact and work less. And work less meaning work less in areas that don't really align to my own. It's almost like I want to work smarter, not harder. It's things more like that. And have more time to travel and explore the world, and to felt like the last 20 years, 25 years even, has been amazing. And I could feel the part of me that was continually pushing to do more, because it was using whatever I was doing to feed a sense of value, accomplishment, recognition, and therefore it had a push to it that I didn't find rest for. And that's what I mean, is like, if I had a redo, it would be like, could I collaborate more? Could I delegate more? Could I leverage this trusting of others so that impact could be made deeper and wider and further together, rather than having to do it all by myself, or feeling like I have to push and grind to, what I can't remember the saying, working to the grindstone, or so there's some kind of English saying that talks about working hard around that. So it's about creating more balance in life around my own joy and happiness, and not be such a workaholic, I think.
Clear.
So these are very personal aspects, like being a dad and doing this. And the reason why is because I feel like my life's a little bit top heavy in the other ways. Like, if you would look at it, like, since I was 19, I was serving and teaching and on stages and traveling and sharing this message. And whereas most people, they spend their years formatively trying to figure out what they want to do, and then they spend their later years actually doing it. I had the reverse. I was on purpose when I was 19, and now I'm like tired and ready to retire, and like, I want to let somebody else do that. And I'd like to still show up and give my gifts, but it almost feels like entering my autumn years earlier than most people would. Very strange. I know that sounds weird, but I found like I used up all my rocket fuel earlier. And I'm not really the young kind of like, when I was a young man, I remember having so much energy. And yet people watching this going, dude, you look like a fetus still. What are you talking about?
More life force and energy than most people walking around, for sure. And so, I can imagine, and I seen or witnessed this where there's an exhaustion from all that you've given, and also, let's say, when it came through with the push. So I feel you so deserve to play and enjoy your time here on Earth while sharing your gifts.
It's while. It's not in replacement. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I remember Neil Donald Walsh looking at me, and he said in his profound voice, "To those that much is given, much is asked." And then he went and he said, "If not you, who? Exactly. If not now, when?" So these things can stick in my nervous system and can actually be used to prevent rest. Because if I then go into rest, I go, but I have been given so much. A lot is being asked of me. And or if not me, who? I have to do it. Like, in other words, we can use inspiration to feed the never-ending push.
True, absolutely.
So, and yet I still agree with everything he said. I think it's profound, especially when you say it with a low voice into a microphone.
Exactly. To those taking it on, good luck with that. So I want to thank you so much for coming on here on the Final Chance, for taking your final chance to share all your wisdom, your words, but most importantly, your essence, your frequency. And I hope those that have listened thoroughly enjoyed it and have taken the golden nuggets that were in this conversation. Of course, as always, would love to know how this conversation inspired you. But again, I want to thank you, dear brother, for being here on Earth while I'm alive too. Yeah. And it doesn't matter how often we see each other. I feel like we're always connected. There's always this feeling of there's still so much more to come, and our connection feels related to that. And at the same time, if this was the last conversation we've had, there's only love, only gratitude, only blessings to your journey. So thank you so much for being a part of this.
Yay. Thank you so much.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of the Final Chance podcast. And if you want to be the first to know when the next episode comes online, then make sure to follow this podcast on Spotify and hit the subscribe button on YouTube. Now, Christian and we would love to know what your biggest insight is from this conversation, so don't hesitate to reach out and let us know. In the show notes, as always, you can find all the links to connect to us. And I invite you to go check out insightstointimacy.com. This is where you can order Christian's book, and if you get the book, you also get access to a free home study program with powerful practices that will upgrade your communication skills and thus your relationships. And if you're ever looking for a tribe of conscious, heart-centered people, then make sure to keep an eye out for the events that are happening at New Eden, Christian's home and retreat center in the Netherlands. I appreciate you for taking the time to listen all the way to this podcast, and I'm looking forward to bring to you another transmission filled with light in the next episode of the Final Chance podcast.